Hi, my name is Addi Castles, and this is my Sports Med 3-6 project, and I will be covering the chemical process of a brain of an addict. So here's some science behind addiction. Addiction is a disease. There is a common misconception that addiction is a choice or a lifestyle, but it is actually a disease. The definition of addiction is a relapsing brain disease that is characterized by compulsive drug seeking and use despite harmful consequences. Here's some more information about where addiction takes place in the brain and the chemical process. The limbic system contributes to the area regarding pleasure in the brain, causing certain behaviors to continue. Known as a pathway, chemical and electrical signals are relayed once activated, either by pleasure, achievement, reward, or more. These signals travel through the synapse, a small space between the cells. These cells release dopamine, a chemical and electrical signal that travels through their synapse to eventually link with dopamine receptors and create a certain type of protein. The dopamine receptors are found on the surface of each of these cells. Here is some more information about the brain process of addiction. Once an achievement is reached, also being rewarded, the brain releases more dopamine and bonds faster to produce a happier outcome in the chemical process of the brain. This region of the brain can be tampered by drugs, alcohol, and unhealthy habits because, like dopamine, these habits produce a misconception of making the brain and body feel better without dopamine. Addiction often has the misconception of using bad habits to feel better, but use of bad habits is usually just to feel normal. A lot of drug addicts have fun the first few times they take those drugs. Then after that, they are seeking to find that high or that feeling again. And so they just use it to feel normal and go back to when things were better. There are three factors that contribute to addiction, and I will be explaining those in this next slide. Genetics is a huge contributor. 50 to 75% of the likelihood of people that become addicts have a family history of addiction. More research is being done that proves what aspects factor most into these genetic issues and how to prevent them from continuing to future generations. If a child has a mother or father or grandparents that are addicts to something, they have a very high likely chance of becoming an addict. It is not obviously a guarantee, but it is a much more large percentage that you will become addicted to something at some point in your life. Another contributor is the environment. Growing up with older influences that engage in acts of addiction, such as smoking and drinking, are at a greater risk to becoming addicts. The risk can be reduced by a stable home life and protective educated schools. Like genetics, environment is about the same, but in a different way. If you're around a bunch of older kids, adults that are using these objects, you're going to become more curious. You're going to want to experiment, and also just you want to be in that lifestyle because that's all you know. But if we have strong support systems such as school counselors and also stable home lives, we can reduce these issues by a lot. Another thing that contributes to addiction is development. Addiction can occur at any time, but the chances of becoming an addict are heightened when beginning dangerous and unhealthy activities at a younger age. Until the brain is completely developed in our mid-20s, addiction becomes more likely to occur. So if you start vaping, drinking, smoking at a young age, you have a higher chance of becoming addicted for life, but you can reduce those chances by not starting at all. But if you're starting later in life, there is a higher chance that you will become less addicted than if you were to start when you were extremely young. And here's the display of addiction in athletes and the effects. So, if an athlete smokes marijuana, it can negatively impact short-term memory, learning, balance, coordination, and the ability to focus. Alcohol may impair problem-solving ability, memory, learning, and coordination, and can lead to liver and neurological damage. Cocaine can cause damage to the heart and respiratory, nervous, and digestive systems. Amphetamine short short term can include headaches, convulsions, hallucinations, and paranoia, but long term effects may include permanent nerve damage and death.